welcome everyone to the first session of the day. Bright and early, we're in for a treat. I first met Marilyn maybe 4 or 5 years ago when I did the piano PDL, and I went home immediately and started to implement a lot of her work. So today we have the quadruple effect. So we have 4 wonderful teachers who are going to talk us through some tricks and techniques in the piano room. So I shall hand it over to wonderful people.
Wonderful. Thank you guys for being here. Good morning. My name is Sarah, and we, the 4 of us, are so excited to present to you and show you what a beginner group piano class looks like using music learning theory principles. And the 4 of us and many other people at this conference are doing this in our own little pockets of the country. And the 4 of us all came into this obviously in very different ways. So I just want to talk a little bit about that briefly. This is Robert right here. Robert has his multiple degrees in piano. He's been teaching a piano studio for 18 years. And he started to feel dissatisfied actually with teaching because his students were unable to be creative beyond the page in front of them, right? And so he went down the rabbit hole of MLT and found this, what we're about to show you. And Krista has a little bit of a different story. She worked at a community school in Boston, and they offered her the opportunity to begin group piano classes. They were like, here's a room full of pianos. What do you want to do? And she's like, well, I have an MLT background with music play, so there's got to be a way to do this. So she went down the rabbit hole, and she found this. And then my story is a little bit different. I'm from Minneapolis. I have a music play studio up there, so my specialty is babies and toddlers. But what happened with me is my parents are always the ones that are nagging you for stuff, am I right? So my parents were like, well, what's next? Because you've been teaching my kid for 3 years in these classes, and now they're 4. And so I thought, I'll find something for you, and I couldn't find anything that I found to be meaningful and honor what I had already done with them. So I went down the rabbit hole, and we kind of all converged and came to this woman right here. And if you don't know Marilyn Lowe, she is basically the goddess of piano pedagogy. And she, studied and learned from Dr. Gordon. She's one of the lucky few here who has met and spoken with him and had a relationship with him. And she went up to him and said, hey, I think that MLT principles should be applied to piano. And he was like, hey, that's a great idea, go write it. And so she did. And she wrote this beautiful series called Music Notes for Piano and Keyboard Games. And that is what we are going to show you today. So all of our little rabbit holes came to this one right here, and we're so pleased that it did. And there are so many beginner piano method books out there right now, and a lot of them have something to offer. But we feel like this has the most to offer when it comes to wanting to apply music learning theory and audiation. It has movement, it has creative play, it has improvisation, it has audiation. And what it doesn't force on students too early is notation. And a lot of beginner piano method books do. They put notation right in front of a 4-year-old, and they are not ready, as most of us know. So I'm going to pass the baton over to Krista. She's going to kind of show you what you're about to see, and then you guys are going to get to see what a class looks like. Right?
All right, so what does a beginner piano class look like? We're going to go through a lesson plan for what's called keyboard games. Typically, that's the beginner method books. We are going to pretend that it's a 4 and 5-year-old class. So you're going to see 3 main sections. You're going to see activity times, where we're actually away from the piano. We're going to be sitting or standing in a circle, and we're going to be moving. You're going to hear songs in different tonalities and meters, chants in different meters. This is where we do our tonal patterns and our rhythm patterns, all so essential to music learning theory. We actually have 2 activity times. So we start away from the piano, we'll go back to the piano, then we'll be away from the piano again, and then end at the piano. So you see how developmentally appropriate this is for the young child. Then Robert is going to bring us through a creativity and improvisation part at the piano. We're going to take rhythm patterns, and you're going to use them to create at the piano with very short 2 macrobeat rhythm patterns, and then we extend them to 4 macrobeat rhythm patterns, and create some imagery at the piano, and really use that vocabulary that they're learning in the activity times and apply it to the keyboard. And then finally, I'll be teaching the new keyboard piece, which will be Bike Ride, and you'll see some differences with how we teach the performance pieces in Music Moves for Piano and what you might be used to. We don't use letter names. You'll see how it looks on the page. We're going to use clusters for this piece, and it's also going to be very rhythmically driven. So that's what you're going to see, and I think the most important part of this presentation is to experience it. So Sarah's going to start, and before Sarah starts, I do want to mention that because this is preparatory audiation, this is acculturation, this is going to be very informal. It's informal instruction. And also you notice that we call it a beginner piano class, and that's because it can be taught to 2 to 4 students at one time. Children learn from one another, so applying this in groups is really quite wonderful. So keep that all in mind as you experience.
All right, so as we do this, I realize it stretches pretty far back, but we are going to be giving the example class up here, and we're going to be asking for volunteers. So before we do that, please, if you're the person sitting out there right now that's like, oh my god, no, I don't play piano, let that go, because again, this is designed for 4 and 5-year-olds. So I promise you, as long as you have a hand on your body, you can probably come up here and do this. But for my time, I'm gonna start by showing you how I would begin a class, and because you guys are so far back, I'm gonna do it all standing, even though I would be sitting for a lot of it. So could I please have 3 to 4 people come up and just make some music with me up here? You don't have to play the piano right away. Yeah, so just make your way out. Thank you. Yeah, I think we should stand so everyone can see. I'm getting over cold, I'm sorry. Can you guys blow up your balloons? And float with me. Let all the air out. And blow them up again. Can you float around our space? Yeah, keep moving. Let all the air out again. Yeah, can you sing bum, 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 bum. One more time. Make your balloon really big this time, and really make the wind blow it. Should we pop them? When we pop, we're gonna sing pop. Are you ready? Here we go. Pop. Yeah. Ba 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 ba. Ba 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 She the same as me, or was she Listen as I sing my song and roll your hands with me. All right, and I want you to notice if there's any part where I'm not singing. Yum ba-dum ba-dum bum. Bum ba-dum ba-dum. Yum ba-dum ba-dum bum. Bum bum. Yum ba-dum ba-dum bum. Bum ba-dum ba-dum. Bum ba-dum ba-dum. Bum bum. Did you notice any space in my music? Yeah, let's do it again and really start to think about it. Yum ba-dum ba-dum bum. Bum ba-dum. You guys can do this too. Ba-dum bum. Bum bum. Yum ba-dum ba-dum bum. Bum ba-dum ba-dum. Bum ba-dum ba-dum. Bum bum. You know that space that you want? We put a clap there. Can you guys do it too? Here we go. Yum ba-dum ba-dum bum. Bum ba-dum ba-dum. Yum ba-dum ba-dum bum. Bum bum. Yum ba-dum ba-dum bum. Bum ba-dum ba-dum. Bum ba-dum ba-dum. Bum bum. Alright, this time we're gonna put a jump there. Feel free to stand up if you're feeling like, oh, it's morning and I need to warm up. Are you ready? We're gonna jump on that part. Yum ba-dum ba-dum bum. Bum ba-dum ba-dum. Yum ba-dum ba-dum bum. Bum bum. Yum ba-dum ba-dum bum. Bum ba-dum ba-dum. Bum ba-dum ba-dum. Bum bum. Yeah, the jumps get faster towards the end. We're gonna put it together. Jump and clap. None of them are doing it with us. Here we go. Yum ba-dum ba-dum bum. Bum ba-dum ba-dum. Yum ba-dum ba-dum bum. Bum bum. Yum ba-dum ba-dum bum. Bum ba-dum ba-dum. Bum ba-dum ba-dum. Bum bum. Could you guys all sing? Bum bum. Bum bum. Ya-da-dum ba-dum bum. Ba-dum. Could you guys just explore the space all around you like this? Yum ba-dum ba-dum ba-da-da. Yum ba-dum ba-dum ba-da-da. Ya-da-ba-ba-da, ya-da-ba-ba. Yum ba-dum ba-da-da-da-dum. Just watch. Bum. Can you do that? Bum. When I freeze, I'm gonna do that and you're gonna breathe. Bum and sing our resting tone. Can you move with me again? Yum ba-dum ba-dum ba-da-da.
Bum,
Yum ba-dum ba-dum ba-da-da.
bum,
Ya-da-ba-ba-da, ya-da-ba-ba.
bum,
Yum ba-dum ba-da-da-da. Yeah, I'm gonna throw it to one of you. And if you catch it, you're gonna sing bum. Yum ba-dum ba-dum ba-da-da.
bum,
Yum ba-dum ba-dum ba-da-da. Bum. Ya-da-ba-ba-da, ya-da-ba-ba. Bum. Yum ba-dum ba-da-da-dum.
bum.
Yeah, that other class was singing really loud. You guys did a great job singing the resting tone. Thank you. And then you guys would move into your next activity. So I'm gonna have you guys sit down because we're gonna ask for more volunteers. And I think that Robert is next. Yeah.
So we're all going to be we're elephant astronauts. And on this side of the room, let's just stand up, and we're elephant astronauts, and we're in space, and there's no gravity. On this side of the room, the gravity on this side of our spaceship is working. So we're very, very heavy. He's over here. We're very, very Continue. Continue. And switch. like to improvise a pattern, let's continue. You guys were microbeats, right? Macrobeats.
Macro.
Macros. Micros. So let's continue with macros and micros. If you want to improvise a pattern, give me a thumb up. Okay? So, ba, 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 ba. I'll start. Ba, 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 ba. Who would like to improvise? Michael. Great, okay, so please sit back down. So anybody that wanted to improvise and didn't get a chance? Everybody, okay, so let me take a couple of you improvisers, Michael and Marshall, Michael and Marshall, great. Okay, so and you can come up to the piano. We're gonna improvise a little bit. Something that I've noticed, lots of other method books talk about the importance of improvisation and give just vague, broad guidelines of how to do it. Music Moves is the only series that really gives what I think are useful and helpful guidelines to improvise. So we'll start with 2 macro beat patterns. Just to mention 2. You guys, you all are advanced, so we might go soon to 4. But so, Marcia, would you like to improvise the 2 macro beats for the pattern? Okay. Great. So we'll take the piano, and since keyboard games is geared to 4 to 6-year-olds, sometimes we do stand up at the piano because that usually works pretty well for alignment and for arm alignment, and then we don't have to worry about. By the way, how many people here are piano teachers? Okay, good. I forgot your pattern. What's your pattern? Great. So there's 2 steps that I've been using to improvise with students to rhythm patterns. Step 1, play the pattern on 1 key with a middle finger, like just any key. Ready, play. Very good. Michael, what's your pattern?
Ba ba ba.
Great. Oh, so we'll do 2. We'll go to 4 in a minute. So we'll just start with ba ba.
Ba ba.
Great.
Yeah.
So go on 1 key. Ready, play. Very good. So step 1. Step 2, random keys. So they're not worried about playing the right notes. They're really improvising. Sometimes we'll use a soft fifth. Or sometimes we'll use middle finger, which is another thing that I got from Marilyn. Maybe other piano teachers have been using this, but turns out pointer fingers leads to little twists, which are not so great. Middle fingers has them playing with good alignment right from the beginning. And that's pretty magical because tone is really a product of alignment and efficiency. I can't believe that Marilyn got technique and audiation because both of those are so important and so complicated and difficult. Anyway, where were we? Marcia, so we're gonna go to random keys. Just maybe middle finger. And ready, play. macros. Let's chant first, and ready, chant. Now let's play on one key. And you can use both hands or one hand and play on multiple keys. And Michael, what's your pattern, please?
Ba 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 ba.
Great, and play on one key, middle finger. And then random keys, both hands or one hand. And here's another magical bit. After years of teaching one-on-one piano lessons and playing, sometimes I would play duet parts with them, they didn't really learn timing so well when I'm playing duet parts with them, because when they screw up, I always catch them. Even when I try not to catch them, I do it anyway. But when they're playing with each other, they actually enjoy getting it right. And they're not always the weak musician in the room. I think they learn not so great things about how to become a musician when they're always the less experienced musician in the room. Anyway, okay, so what we could do, we were doing 4 memory patterns. We can have Michael on one side of the piano and Marcia on one side of the piano. And I'll establish meter. And do you remember your rhythm patterns? Okay, so I'll establish meter and improvise together. So, ba, 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 and ready, play. Right. Times it times 2. You have a longer piece. Times it times 4. That's a good little piece of music, a little duet. And it's interesting, and nobody has ever heard it before. No one will ever hear it again. Something to that. So that's improvisation, where we're guiding their creations. And then there's also creativity, which I could go through. I don't know, do I have time to do that, or should I go move?
I don't know.
Okay, so maybe I'll just take a minute, and maybe I'll just use, I've got to choose between you. I can't. We'll do it together. So, if we're gonna guide towards more creation, I'll ask you to make choices. Maybe pick a favorite animal. Like, what do you have in mind? A yellow-eared slider turtle? Is that what you're thinking?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
What are you thinking?
Bear.
Bear. Always a bear. Okay. Loud or quiet is your yellow-eared slider?
A loud turtle.
I feel bad for picking your animal. A loud turtle, yes! I love loud turtles. Okay, you bear?
Oh, it's gotta be loud.
Okay, great. Loud turtle, loud bear.
Cool.
Fast or slow? Say your answer at the same time on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3.
Slow.
Great. I'm looking right. Okay. So we're slow, we're loud. What's the other parameters I'm forgetting? Separated or connected? Separated or connected? Okay, good, got it. And do we want to use do-da-dee-do, do-da-dee-do, or do you want to use do-they-do, do-they-do? I'll pick this one.
Okay.
Let's use do-they-do, do-they-do. So we're in duple meter, but I'll let you pick your patterns within duple meter. 4 macro beats times 4, because you're advanced. And, okay, stations please. I'll establish meter, and we'll do, and you remember your parameters for the yellow-eared slider turtle and the bear, and we'll see what happens. Ba, ba, ba. Ready and play. All right, I'll take it. I think that was 2 4 macro beat patterns, or you might have been doing 4 2 macro beat patterns. Regardless, and students there will be miscommunications like that, maybe especially with me, I don't know. But what did they learn? They're learning how to keep time with each other, even if there were little mistakes in communication. So that's pretty huge. Anyway, so I'll let that be my portion for now. You return to your seats and someone else is coming. Okay, great.
No, I'm coming back up. Does anybody, can someone shout the time out to me, please? We're all over.
We're 10 past 9.
9:12, and we go until 9:40.
45.
9:45. Okay, so now would be a time where the students who had their activity time and then they improvised, now they're gonna come back to the floor and do another brief activity time. So can I get a few new peeps up here? Some fresh blood? Come on up, folks. It's movement and singing. I can't do it by myself.
You might have to make them do it. You're an obstinate crowd.
All right, then everybody stand up. Yeah, that's what you get. Ba 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 ba. Can you guys go? Ba 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 ba. Keep going. Ba 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 ba. Watch my hands and do what I'm asking you to do. Ba 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 ba. Ba 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 ba. Ba 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 ba. Ba 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 ba. My song is moving too. Yum bum 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 bum. Yum bum 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 bum. That's not it. Bum bum bum. That's it. Yum bum 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 bum. Can you guys draw a circle for me while I sing? Yum bum 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 bum. Yum bum 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 bum. What's a different way we could draw a circle? Yeah. Yum ba ba bum 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 bum. Yum ba ba bum bum ba 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 bum. What's a different way we could draw a circle with our knee? Yes. Wake up. Yum ba ba bum 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 bum. Yum ba ba bum bum ba 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 bum. Can you guys sing bum bum
Bum bum
bum bum?
bum bum
Yum bum bum.
yum bum
What's
bum.
one last way we could draw our circle, Judy?
With our toe.
With which toe?
Our right toe.
Our right foot.
The big toe. On
The
our
big
right
toe on our right foot. I had to actually think which one was left and right there. Oh my gosh. Here we go. Yum ba ba bum 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 bum. Yum ba ba bum bum ba 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 bum. All right, you guys. Yadum bottom bum bottom. Move in a strong way with me. Yum bum bum bottom. Yum bum bum bottom. Yum bum bum bottom. Yadum bum bottom. Could you get your hips involved in your strong way? Yum bum bum bottom. Yum bum bum bottom. Yum bum bum bottom. Yadum bum bottom. And then could you sing bum?
Bum.
Yeah. Yum bum ba, yum bum ba da dum ba dum, bum ba dum. Now can you guys pretend that you're looking at me in a mirror? That means you have to do everything I do. I'm gonna try to get, I think I feel, I'm gonna show you right here. Yeah, you're gonna follow what I do. Ya da 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 dum, ba da 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 dum. And then I would maybe have a student come up and do that, but I'm not gonna let you guys because none of you volunteered to come up and do them. So I'll do it one more time. Ya da 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 dum, ba da da. And that is my last song, and my voice has officially gone, so I'm gonna let Krista come up now because this would be the point in the class where they would come back up to the piano or start to get ready to.
So, can everybody take their arms, pretend you're riding a bike. I'm gonna play a song, you keep on moving that way. Do, here I go. Can you move your feet now like you're riding a bike? Do, here I go. One more time, can you do it together? Arms, go, and this is ab workout. Here we go. Do. Was my piece in 2? Did you hear do day? Or 3? Did you hear do dotty? You heard do day. That's right. So my piece is in 2. We are in duple meter. We're gonna go on 2 bike rides, 2 short bike rides. Here's my first. Listen and echo with your hands and your voice. Please. Do day do. Do day do.
Do day do. Do day do.
Do day do day do day do.
Do day do day do day do.
Now, were my 2 bike rides, were they the same or were they different? They were different. Can anybody remember the rhythm pattern for the first bike ride? It's a little tricky. My first bike ride was do day do. Do day do. Say that?
Do day do. Do day do.
And then my second bike ride was do day do day do day do. Say?
Do day do day do day do.
Yeah, so what was my first bike ride?
Do day do. Do day do.
That's right. And then what was my second bike ride?
Do day do day do day do.
Yeah, so the first one was do day do. Do day do. And the second, do day do day do day. I'm gonna have this half of the room do the first bike ride. This half do the second bike ride, and then we're gonna have one really long bike ride. All right, here we go. Ready, chant.
Do day do. Do day do. Do day do day do day do.
I don't think you can do the long bike ride, can you? Yeah, of course you can. And by 4 and 5, they can do the long bike rides as well. All right, so starting with this hand, here we go.
Do day do. Do day do. Do day do day do day do.
Yeah, so our piece, duple meter, moving in 2. And we are going to listen to it. So you remember when you practice at home, you're going to listen to
Bike ride,
the recording.
duple meter, moves in 2, student part. Do day do, ready, play now.
This is our duet part.
Duet part.
This is what I'll play first. Let's see if we can do Can you hear it together? Let's see if we can chant it while we're playing. Ready,
Do day do. Do day do. Do day do day do day do.
here's our pattern.
Echo
The
these
best
rhythm
rhythm.
patterns with your voice. Do day do. Do day do.
Do day do. Do day do.
Do day do day do day do.
Do day do day do day do.
So this is what the students practice with at home. They have their audio files. Let's take a look at our bike ride page. Okay, so you can't see back there, but you'll see, are we playing with an individual finger Or are we playing with the fists for this piece? Yeah, you can show me the fist. And then you'll notice we have an S1 and an S2. So the S1 means that's the hand that starts first. So can everybody, I'm pointing to it, show me which hand starts first? It's the one that we practice with, that's right. And then the other hand is second. And then, can you see, are we playing on groups of 3 or groups of 2 black keys? We're playing on groups of 3. So we're gonna have to count when we get to the piano. We're gonna count in groups of 3. Count with me right now. We're 1, 2, 3. So we're gonna have to find that when we get to the piano. 1, 2, 3. I'm gonna play it first, and I'm just gonna play short rhythm patterns. I want you to echo what I do. Here I go. Do, day, do.
Do, day, do.
Do, day, do.
Do, day, do.
Do, day, do, day.
Do, day, do, day.
Was that the different one? Yep. So we have to remember that, and then we end with do, day, do.
Do, day, do.
Can I have a volunteer? I just need one. It's a very easy piece. Come on up. All right. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to count together. Can you find this group of 3 on the piano? Oh, this one here. So good. 1, 2, 3. This is about middle of keyboard games A2. Some students will be able to find their place quickly, and others are still going to need help, and that's okay. Remember, in formal instruction, we give them as much help as needed. So can you make a very soft fist? Right, because we don't want to go like this. A very soft fist, and can you place it where it goes? Yeah. With that hand, can you play do, day, do? Yeah. Can you find where your other hand goes? And can you play do, day, do? Now, do you remember what comes next? Do, day, do. That's right. Can you try that for me? And what does it end with? Exactly. So if you have more than one student in the class, these are questions that you can actually be asking the other students when one student is at the piano. So, and students they will come up to the piano, and because we did all this preparation in our away from the keyboard time, some students will come right to the piano and they'll know what it sounds like and they'll play it right away. Others may be more reluctant, and if they are more reluctant, say Wendy came up and she was not really sure or didn't want to play, you can do something like this. Wendy, can you put your hands on top of mine and just chant with me? Ready, chant. Do, day, do, day, do, day, do, day, do. So you can be completely appropriate and tailor this to whatever child you have coming up to the piano. And if they play it wonderfully, as Wendy did, no, come stay up here. I might ask them, all right, let's change it in some way. How can we change bike ride to make it sound a little bit different? Some ideas, you can start with the other hand instead of starting with this hand. You can change where bike ride is on the piano. She can change it to a lower register. Or she can even play the second short bike ride first, and then the first bike ride last. So how would you like to change it?
I would like to change register.
Perfect. How about you do that, and I'll play the duet with you. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'll start, and I'll let you know when to come in. Ready, play. Do, we're gonna do one more time. We're gonna chant while we play. Okay, so I'll begin. Do, day, do. Ready, play now. Do, excellent, thank you, Wendy. So you pretty much saw an entire lesson of keyboard games. And before we move on to another really important part of our presentation, I just wanted to briefly show you the teacher's guide and what's in it. You saw the page here and kind of went over the symbols that the student will see when they play and what they'll see in their student book. And in the teacher's guide, all the songs and the chants that Sarah did, those are in the teacher's guide, as well as examples of patterns, lots and lots of ideas for movement. And then for Robert's part with creativity and improvisation, there's a whole chapter with ideas on creative activities for the students. There's also going to be this lesson plan, and for each performance piece, you'll have ideas of how to prepare them away from the keyboard, what creative activities you can do at the keyboard to help with technique, to help with the keyboard geography awareness, and then also ideas for challenging each student. So really everything you need to teach these lessons is going to be in this teacher's guide. And now I'll hand it over to Marilyn and Robert.
Robert, yes. So after this wonderful foundation in preparatory audiation for children, what is next? Well, there's a series of 5 books that are sequenced to build audiation skills further. So we're going to show you some of the activities that students learn along the way, so that by the time they're in high school, they have a real store of ways they can communicate with improvisation. And Robert's going to give us some examples, and I'm going to ask you to listen and tell us what he's doing. So first he's going to play a tune that's called Latvian folk song. The method is folk song based. If they have short folk tunes, there's probably 80 tunes in the series that they can use to build their improvisation skill. So, play the tune. The kids have learned it, they've sung it, they've done the patterns. You're going to play it.
I know. You should have heard these 3 giving me orders yesterday.
No.
I was going to say that they've sung these songs a lot before it's time to play them. So, and a lot of other method books, it's sing the song. Now let's play it, as if they're audiating it just like that.
Acculturation happens. They've heard the song, they moved to the song, they've learned the parts of the song, they've done all these activities. So now he's going to show us the way students learn to use these songs clear through high school, and they have a huge bag of tricks.
Okay.
Go ahead. Tonality is, tonality is what? Meter is what? We're going to do the patterns in a minute. He's going to, let's hear, he's going to take half of the tune. Okay, so he's learned to transpose the tunes to different keys, and there are different ways you can do that. I like the way he started the lead transposition with the ending of the first phrase and went on. Okay, now he's going to create with rhythm patterns from the tune on random keys. Did you hear the rhythm patterns? Do do day do do day do do day do do, and that repeats for the second half. Same rhythm pattern. And he's going to use random keys. He's going to decide his tempo, his articulation, his dynamics, and the register, and he's going to focus on sound painting. Very good. So my students learn they can do that with any piece or song they know. They've got those rhythm patterns in their head, and they can always play whenever they find a piano in any train station, on the street, wherever. So now he's going to create with tonal patterns from the tune. The significant, essential tonal patterns are do, la, and la, re. So he's going to create with those tonal patterns.
I'm going to change keyalities.
Great, I don't want to hear D minor again.
What was that? So I'm improvising the tonal patterns. Dola.
There you go. Now he's going to change tonality and listen and see if you can hear which tonality he's using. He's going to do a minute.
I'm going to start with the most expressive of tonalities.
Name it. Low Korean.
Beautiful. Oh. Why don't we have them call tonalities and I'll play in different tonalities?
Okay, name a tonality.
Lydian.
Lydian. Okay. This is hard, by the way. Yesterday I was playing, and she's like, "I'm tired of D. Play in different keyalities." And so I practiced, and it's good. It's good.
Name one.
Dorian.
Dorian.
Is that right? No, that's not right.
Another one.
Phrygian.
Good.
I feel like I'm cheating if I do D. I'm gonna do it anyway. What's that?
Two more. Mixolydian, Mixolydian.
So they are learning cadences over time in all of these different tonalities. So,
Plenty of acculturation all the way through the years. This is taking them through high school.
so they might not pull it out of their head like I'm doing, but they have the building blocks.
And they will do it when they're older.
Yeah.
And the last one.
Look at you.
How about Aeolian? And now he's going to change the meter. It's in duple, so he's going to change it to other meters. Let us know what you hear. What is that meter? Triple. Now another meter.
Unusual impaired.
Unusual unpaired. Unusual unpaired.
Five.
No.
You can do it. 5 or 7.
I'm gonna do paired.
Oh, that's right.
Okay.
I'm gonna do unpaired.
Yeah, he said he landed. And let's try and combine the meter.
Okay. Wait. So we're gonna do unusual unpaired. I don't know. Was that right? It probably wasn't.
Combined meter.
Combine it. Uh-oh. I gotta go.
Right, now he's gonna make a melodic variation using passing tones, upper neighbors, and lower neighbors. Okay, and now he's gonna make a rhythmic variation, changing only the rhythm, not the pitch. Now he's going to reharmonize the tune using only major triads by thinking the letter name of each tone and what major triads has that tone in it. If it uses E, what three major triads have an E in it? If it uses an F, what three major triads have an F in it? So we've got all major triads harmonies.
This is really pretty cool. It's pretty hard. I'm sorry, where are you?
This is a very advanced student, I just wanna.
Well, this is what they do in high school, and they do their
Yeah.
senior recitals with a variation of folk song.
And they probably do it better than me because,
They've been doing this their whole life.
right.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna harmonize each melody note with a major chord in the left hand that uses that melody note. I'm gonna try to do that. That's not right. Let me do that again.
Okay, you can do the same thing with minor triads, and then the final is to create a set of variations. Have you done that? Can you do that?
Can I do? Of course I can, maybe. So, and what I've been doing with my kids is simple accompaniment patterns, like an emo, we'll just call it that. And by the way, that can be sequenced too. You got level 1 emo, and then you've got level 2 emo, and then like level 3 emo, and then you play the Revolutionary Etude. Okay, so I'm just gonna play like quarters of the song and change accompaniment patterns. Oh, terrible way to end. Okay, we'll end big.
Anyway, these 5 books that take them into high school for learning how to audiate and make improvisations and variations really work, and it keeps them in the mindset of audiating music, which they will forget the minute they start reading notation. So I have to keep coming around and we'll say now for 2 months we're not going to use any notation. It's all playing by ear and creating. and then that pulls them back. But believe me, once they get the notation and that I've made this mistake, I know it happens, they forget to unmute. So this set now we're working in this, now we're learning this, now we're doing that. You have 50 folk songs you can use and go. Thank you so much.
Are there any questions for us? Yes.
Yes, sorry. It works really, really well in groups, this kind of whole thing. Have you had much experience using this with a one-to-one kind of scenario?
I have not.
No, okay.
I only do groups. But
Yeah, you go.
I have before, a few years ago, and it worked. I do enjoy teaching in groups, and I think that children learn a lot from one another, sometimes I think more than from me. But I mean, everybody's studio is going to be different, and sometimes it's hard to get groups together, so there's different ways that you can organize it. We always encourage, like if you have a keyboard game student that has to come by themselves, maybe overlap a time with an older student so that they can hear the older student or they can play duets together. There's ways to get them playing with another student, but I mean sometimes you can't get away from playing with one student, and yeah, it definitely works. Just our advice when you do have one student is not to forget to have away from the keyboard time, because I think with one student, especially if it's only half an hour, which is kind of what a lot of people have in studios, it's so easy to just get stuck to the keyboard. So really, you know, if you follow the lesson plan, it'll be in there to, okay, let's go away from the keyboard and move together. I mean, kind of your group of two, you know, move together the keyboard, or away from the keyboard, go to it. So I would suggest following the same format.
I have something to say that's just to speak for groups. Something we didn't mention yet is siblings. And this is great for a lot of reasons. One, as a parent, the thought of dropping all of my children off and then hightailing it out of there is very appealing. So from a financial perspective and from a business perspective, a lot of parents are like, wait, you'll take my 4 and 6-year-old? And when you say yes, they're like, oh my gosh, and it's amazing. And also, what I've noticed is that, let's just say 4 and 6-year-old, the 6-year-old is just gonna keep going on their own trajectory, but that 4-year-old is just gonna shoot up really, really fast because they get to see Big Sid doing all this great stuff. Their acculturation experience, you know, their siblings playing major and minor cadences on the piano, and they're singing along, or they're starting to identify. I have a little 4-year-old who answered the question when the 7 and 8-year-olds couldn't. He was like, that's major. I'm like, thanks, 4-year-old kid who's been hearing this for the entire year. So group classes, to me, always seemed very daunting. And then when I started doing it, I was just like, wow, these kids play piano better than I ever did at such a young age. So, but it could work with individuals.
Well, no, I totally love the whole group thing, but I have one sort of 3-year-old who's been waiting since birth. And I can't take anyone at the moment just due to space. So I've said next year you can start and she'll be 4, but I've kind of cut all my sighted kids at the moment, so you know she's gonna be on her own.
It's doable. I've had great experiences with single one-on-one students.
Cool. Any other questions? Yep.
Any recommendations in particular for starting an older student in a way that could engage them, or group of students like 12, 13 year olds that might feel too cool for school and
Robert.
We got a wrap, so maybe we take that question outside.
Well, Robert's been doing that and actually had his frustrations and his successes with it, and cool. Marilyn is also, do you have experience with this? I teach mostly like littles. Sure. Yeah, so we'll chat afterwards.
Okay.
All right.
Well, can we all just give them another round of applause?